Today we have my friend Click Thompson on the podcast. Click is the 2022 Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association Photographer of the Year. He has made one heck of a name for himself in the rodeo world as a photographer and an artist. Click is getting geared up to shoot this year's National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas, Nevada, and he took the time to come out here and record this podcast. We are going to talk about his path from the East Coast to killing it out here in the Western industry and his prep work to get ready for this year's NFR. Hey, this is Charlie. I switched gears from a professionally competing team roper to building my brand in order to educate and inspire. My new website will be the foundation for this new venture, Charlie Crawford Training. I will be showcasing the variety of clinics I'm teaching in the upcoming years, opportunities to host one of my clinics, podcasts, videos, articles, gear, and other content on my site, charliecrawfordtraining.com. I need you to head over there and enter your email in the prompt on my new website. That way I can keep you updated on my new offerings and you can stay in the know. That's www.charliecrawfordtraining.com. Get your email in there and keep roping for the pay window. Click, I've known you for a few years now. I've worked with you on some photo shoots for the American. Jackie and I worked together with you. Had a great time, had a blast. You've been a photographer now, our main photographer for Liberty and Loyalty Foundation. Yeah. You're a heck of a photographer. Yeah. You're an amazing artist. But man, what about your career? 2022 Professional Rodeo Cowboy Association Photographer of the Year. You're nominated for the Photographer of the Year again. Man, you're crushing it out here, man. Me and my family could be more proud of you, but it's awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think for that I'm kind of unique because when I started, I didn't know what the goals were, or it's one thing, like me in this whole Western industry, it's one thing to do the thing you dreamed about doing. It's another thing to accomplish things you didn't realize were a thing. And to be, when I look back on it, even stuff now, because I always like to self-reflect and think about, okay, where you've gone and things like that. And when you're planning for the future, it's like, I didn't think this was going to happen. I didn't know this was how this was going to work out. I mean, in the grand scheme of it, I mean, I know how long people dedicate themselves to winning world championships or, having a top voted horse or getting stocked into the NFR or anything like that. And for me to do what I've done in such a really short period of time, like it's only been like a third of my life that I've been a part of this industry, man, it's been awesome. But it's fun to work and operate at a certain level where that's the expectation is to, be in contention for Photographer of the Year or be considered for the NFR rodeos across the country. That's been awesome.
Now, how many times to the NFR?
So technically, officially twice, but I have done it 3 times. I came in relief in 2021. My buddy Clay got COVID, and I kind of snuck in and did the last 4 perfs. We kind of kept it on the hush, but people were like, what's Click doing down here? I'm like, just, brought in the heat. So, I
love it.
Yeah. So, did the Steer Open Finals in 21 and then was shooting just as media in the NFR 2021, and then got the call like 7:30 that morning of the 7 perf, like, hey, can you fill in? And you're like, yeah, we can do it, And that was an interesting day because I had a shoot with Huey that day, and that finished at like 4:30, and I get the one Uber driver that doesn't know what the NFR is, doesn't know where the Thomas and Mack is, and I could just watch in her GPS as she's trying to like drive around traffic. I'm like, just keep going straight. You're wasting time. And we end up on the side, like in the back pins, and I just tell her to stop, and I pull my camera case out and go running through panels and stuff. And
that's almost like that nightmare that every rodeo cowboy has, that when you're trying to get to the rodeo and that nightmare where you just keep getting further away from it and you can hear your name called.
Dude, like
here's your shot.
I'm like, like I'm looking at the Thomas and Mack, but she's like not going in that direction. I'm like, okay, just stop. Well, and I'm hustling trying to get in that deal. And I think I had to get my, because you got to get your credentials straight and numbers are different. And, because the one I had got me to here, but I need to get down here and move around. And
hard place to sneak into, that's for sure.
There's a funny story about that. I had about 30, 40 minutes just getting all that straight. And then my friend Rosanna, who I'm shooting in the arena with this year, she had like 10 minutes to show me like the left side of the arena. And we rolled, and I think I stopped sweating about the barrel race. Got it about, all right, we're here, we're done, you know.
Got your breathing under control by then.
Oh, my God, dude. But yeah, you can't sneak in that deal. It was funny. One of my friends was trying to watch one of her friends in barrel racing practice. He's like, oh, we'll just walk in a horse. And I'm like, there's not going to be another NFL football-sized guy walking in here, like, after me. Like, they're going to remember I came in here. There's no sneaking in this deal.
That's funny.
But, yeah. All fun.
So, man, what a path from back east. Come from back east, now in the Western industry.
Yeah.
What was it like back east? What was a 12-year-old Click like?
Oh, jeez. 12-year-old, he didn't know what he wanted to do. He liked to draw. He liked music. I think about that time, obviously my parents had split, but both parents have always been in my life. I live predominantly with my mother, but my dad's always been around, and we would alternate. And so, I mean, I always still maintain a really good relationship with them, and they've been definitely a bedrock. They've both been super supportive. Like, when I left Virginia, as I would later find out, my mom was not super thrilled, but my dad is always like, you know, whatever you decide to do, like, we support you. And
What town in Virginia were you from?
So the town, well, I live technically if you mailed it, it would say Hayes, but the town's called Gloucester, and it gets mispronounced by every area around it. Gloucester, it's right there on the water. So you're like 10 minutes from, like, the rivers, the bay, and then Atlantic Ocean. So most guys are mechanics or work at the shipyard, and then ladies usually will be like nurses, or, you know, or more than likely you're an import from the military, you know, because we have a lot of installations there. So my dad, both my parents still, well, my mom's retired now, but my dad still works as a security guard on a military base that I used to work at. So at one time, before I moved to Texas, like, everybody but my brother were all on one base. So.
Yeah. So when did you get that camera in your hand? When was the first time?
I think probably in undergrad. No, I shot film in high school.
Okay.
And I remember that I used to hide in the dark room to scare people. And, you know, I wait till everyone gets kind of developing stuff, and I hide under a developer and grab people's ankles and stuff. But
I like it.
And, you know, just to break it up, man, you sit in that room all day and you smell like those chemicals, so you're awful. Like, the worst part is, like, working in that film room and then having to go to another class because you smell like a skunk just got you. And but yeah, that was kind of the first thing. I enjoyed the process, and then I picked it up again in undergrad when I was studying to be a graphic designer, but our curriculum had photography, and it kind of allowed for me to, whatever I was interested in, I could photograph, and whatever, you know, whether it was food or music or and music was big at that time. That was even pre-rodeo and all that, but and then as a designer, I would kind of get like writer's block, but with a camera, I could take a picture and I immediately knew if I did good or not, right?
Right.
Like, the camera was kind of becoming the cheerleader for me. I just, got it, right? And that's kind of what built up to what we do today. But yeah, I say we, like, there's 1,000 people. I do have a team, but, you know, it is, the deal, bigger than it is.
I remember I had when I grew up roping, huge passion for it, obviously. And, you know, I can remember my first rope. Yeah. Gator ropes were big back then when I was a young kid. Yeah. Jake Barnes had gator ropes, so we all had gator ropes. But what was your first camera?
First camera that I owned was a D300. I was the guy that, when I made the decision that that's what I was going to do, like, I knew everything about that camera before it showed up. My first rope was the Nitro from Cactus, because I learned from Drew Stew, and that was the rope that Caesar used, and it was green. So, yeah. But my first camera was that Nikon D300. I shot a D90 or D70 in undergrad, and that was really the one that stuck. And then I said, I would go back and forth, and my mom can tell you, she can hear the videos. Like, I was YouTube education for sure. Like, every little piece of information, and I was so into it. Like, I used to work at a theme park, and I knew I could see what someone was shooting with. Like, I didn't even have to get close to it. Like, that's a certain thing. Like, I fantasized about it. Like, I looked at pictures of cameras. I would have cameras saved on my phone. Like, I'm going to have that one day.
So there had to be probably plenty of, I would say, entertainment at a theme park as far as getting some good footage.
When I started, I worked in games, and I was the guy that I was different because I've always been kind of a little bit more of a reserved guy, but which people, that still happens, but people don't usually see it. They see more of the goofy me. But I learned how to sell things at that time, and I realized that what I was doing there when I worked in games was I wasn't selling like I was selling the prizes, not the game, and you had to do that, and then you got good at communicating and doing stuff like that, and then basically when I transitioned to photography because I'm like, oh, I can make $1 more taking pictures of people. And then there was that whole, but yeah, the theme park, you see a lot of bad parenting, a lot of just like they come through the turnstile and it's just like, bye. And I'm like, that's your 10-year-old child you just let run over this like very expansive park. But yeah, I mean,
some amazing people watching.
Oh yeah. I was so good I could get families to take pictures together that didn't even know each other. Like if I saw people too close, I assumed they were together. And I'm like, everybody squeeze in, and I move so fast that they didn't even know what's happening. But people watching is top tier. There was this one lady that, what's her name? That's probably better. I can't remember. But like she wore like this gaudy pink wig. Like I don't know. She dressed like she was from some 80s like rock video. And like every day she come to the theme park wearing
Cyndi
heels.
Lauper or Pat Benatar?
Like a slam of both of them, like just like as aggressive, like methed out kind of thing you can imagine.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, and she'd come in hot, and it was funny because that was like our goal to try to get a picture of. But she would always be like trying to sneak past us, like we were paparazzi. It was the funniest thing ever. We were terrible.
That's funny. When did you feel like that was your passion? When did you feel like this is it? This is what I'm going to do for a career?
I think when I did that. Actually from that theme park job, one of the guys I met rode bulls, and he told me about some of the local associations and things like that. And when I went to that first one, like I took 200 pictures of just bulls before I didn't really know anybody. Like I remember it vividly because it rained and I was standing under this tent with a bunch of cowboys and I didn't know any of them. And here I am just taking pictures of everything. And it was just like a gold mine. There was photographs everywhere. And like I knew, especially in the rodeo space, like it was the thing I woke up, even still to this day, I wake up and I go to sleep thinking about that next picture or, there's always something else to get, or how can I change what I'm doing, or how can I be what I consider better than the next guy, or, what's the new skill or what's the new thing that I haven't figured out yet. And so, yeah, just always pushing mentally and physically, just trying to be better, a little bit better each day. But that was kind of the driving force. And then, and it's still, I appreciate the art of photography. Like likes are awesome, but like, I think I'm most gratified when like a photographer or someone who really knows what you had to do to get that picture, or someone's like, man, that light is awesome. That's the reminder to me that like I am being a technician at my skill, right?
Yeah.
And then me coming from being involved in the military and doing things like that, I relate a lot of things like that. Like even when I teach students, I do the whole 2 is 1, 1 is none kind of thing with memory cards, cameras. You have to be ready at all times. And so that kind of overlaps, but so I'm very vigilant that way as well. But that's the fire that I keep every day.
Now, is that when you were introduced to the Western industry for the first time? Did you grow up around?
No, I always say my grandfather was the first cowboy I ever met, because he didn't wear a cowboy hat, but he had the ethos. Like he was a hustler. He was always into something. We used to, when we would go visit him, we'd jump in his old beat up Chevy. Like he had a pair of like vice grips on this side just to roll the window down. And
that's cowboy.
Right. And he would take us to this barn. And even like my mom, till this day, I don't have a clue who these horses belong to. It was this rung down deal, and like these 3 horses would come out, and we would pet these horses for 5-10 minutes, and then we go back to the house. And that was like, he loved everything about that. Like that's what he wanted us to do, and like be around horses and stuff like that. And that was just that was our cool big thing. So when we go to Grandpa's house, we're gonna go see these horses.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's somebody he knows, or he just drove up in somebody's yard to show his grandchildren these horses. But man, that was just kind of the beginning of it, and just moving on to the next from there.
Now, did you already go to? I seen where the University of Virginia State University was that after you had already went to school there?
I had graduated from Virginia State before I ever. It's funny. So I graduated from Virginia State in 2009. 2010, I saw my first bucking bull. So that's how
right after
short of a time, how long it's a short period of time it's been leading up to now, but just how quickly and fast. 'Cause yeah, when I walked across that stage and they handed me that deal, I'm like, you told me then I was going to be here. Like, how is that possible? Like, there's no road I could draw there. But
Yeah.
it was just, it became more things I was interested in, and I got the access to it. And then, but yeah, like having that experience of shooting that first one, and you're just like, man, I want to come back and do this next week. And
Yeah.
and I was fortunate. I had good people, like that guy that it's usually that first guy that says come on or come out, and they don't always realize how big of a role they play in like your maturation and the growth of or being involved in the industry. It's that first person that says come on, you know. Now I know they're a little bit more sketchier than they were. They're good dudes, but holy crap, it's like that's a dangerous bunch that I was hanging out with then. But they were down and just like come on. And it's funny, my first ever traveling partner, his name's Carter Hall. He's actually from Stephenville, but he was in Virginia because he served in the Navy as like a submarine guy, but he fought bulls, and that was like the first guy I ever got in a car with and started doing stuff, and then we're going.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, so I'm huge into the military, big military supporter, and my dad was a Marine, so he obviously put that patriotic bone in me. And but I'd seen you worked for a contract of the Department of Defense.
Yeah, so I worked at the Enterprise Multimedia Center, and it's now a joint base with Langley, but Fort Eustis, and that's in like the Newport News, Virginia area. So it's a big, very close to like Little Creek, which is kind of where this is like a SEAL op, and then they have like Fort Story is there, so a lot of people that come are flying out of Virginia Beach are there. DC is like 3 hours north, so and where we are at that base, we have TRADOC, which is basically Training and Doctrine Command, and they basically write the ethos, the standard operating procedure, what a soldier is. So we always have foreign liaisons there. They have a group of people that are literally just travel. It's almost like a mini United Nations there, and I did that for 6 years. My main job, I was a DA photographer or a Department of the Army photographer, and we were responsible for I helped soldiers get promoted. So when you reach a certain rank, you don't physically stand in front of a review board to get promoted. That's your picture is that your physical representation of you. And so we did that. I did the classic head and shoulders with the flags photos. We did change commands, retirement ceremonies. Sometimes we would go to before General Mathis went and worked for Trump, he was at Fort Eustis, and I went to his house and photographed him, and he tried to get us drunk, and that was funny. And you guys need anything? I'm like, no, sir, we're good. Like, it's funny watching them ask those questions because they know we're going to say no. No one's like, everyone's either in like working or they're actual military members. Like, we're not going to take a drink from you, sir. But we appreciate it. But, and he's trying to. Man,
that's fascinating.
He's trying to be a home guy, like seem like a normal you're a 3-star, sir. It's fine. We appreciate you, trying to be, we know this isn't your house. Like none of these books have moved. It's cool. But yeah, and then we would do that. Sometimes I didn't get a chance to go to the Pentagon, but a lot of the guys I work with, but that multimedia center we photographed soldiers. We did video SOPs. We printed targets for soldiers to use. I'm actually probably getting shot at. So whatever the common threat is, we would maybe use one of our employees and maybe photograph them and then maybe Photoshop them and turn them to something that looks like, a threat. And then we would print these giant targets on these 4x8 deals. So just as training aids, but we did, we had a whole fabrication crew. We had 3D machines. So it was always something cool, creative going on, but the rodeo trail pulled me away.
So what made rodeo more appealing? Because you had to have learned a lot when you were contracting for that.
You experienced, that was like my first big boy job too. Yeah. But I mean, I was ready for it. And you learn it's further learning how to interact with people. And like obviously for me doing podcasts and stuff, you get better like when you have to do an interview or something. But when you sit in those rooms with those colonels and those generals and learn how to interact with different people, and it also teaches you the things you take for granted. Like we would have visits I remember we had a general from Chile fly in and we did a whole tour, and this bridge that I crossed every day to go to work, it opened differently than any bridge he had ever seen. So him and his whole crew were like super fascinated because we had like a naval destroyer and the bridge would kind of open sideways, and that's how the ships would pass through. And they had never seen a bridge like that open before. I'm like, I cross this bridge every day, right? So, but you learn to appreciate those little things like that. And to sit in some of those rooms with those generals and those 4-stars and, or just watching a guy get promoted and or even retire, that was a unique experiences because when I was doing it, I was around the time where like the leaderships kind of started to get a little top heavy. So they would call it the boogeyman board. And sometimes like some guys weren't getting promoted or they have to retire because they had 20, almost 30 years in. But you would see how people like really loved what they do. It wasn't just, they weren't just serving. It was what they loved to do.
Right.
So, but it's also like when they sing the Old Soldiers Never Die song, I always think about that because you see guys retire and it's like, that's what he's done for 30 years. So, and some of them are like so looking forward to it. It's like, it's a new chapter in my life. And you see some guys like, I don't have a clue what I'm going to do. Yeah. So it's all those different experiences, but yeah, you learn so much. I think for me transitioning into rodeo, I was doing a lot of stuff with the PBR, and like when you go for a weekend and like you make a little bit of money, it's harder to come back to that cubicle, right? Right. When you get a taste of our carny gypsy life and you start figuring out ways to make money, you're like, oh. Yeah. Like, this is cool. I remember one of my buddies called me, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I'm in the office. He's like, trying to catch this calf. And I'm like, dude, I want to be where you are right now. I just want to be laying under the trailer with you trying to get this calf caught. And I'm like, I'm feeling the tug, right? So that's when I, like, started to make that plan. Like, okay, I can make a little bit of money here. If I can chain a few more of these together,
So I remembered what kind of snagged me when I was a young kid, and where I lived wasn't very far from St. Paul, Oregon. I grew up in Canby, Oregon. Yeah. And so we would have some of the top guys come and stay over at our house in between slacks and, as they're laying over, flying in and out. Yeah. And just being around those guys was like, these guys are free. Yeah. Like it was so romantic looking at it, and the fact of they're broke, but you would never guess it.
Oh, yeah.
And they loved what they did. And that was truly like, for me, what I'm like, I want to be like that. That pulled me in. What was it you feel like for you that as rodeo, and what pulled you in?
Some of that deal, like there's certain moments like I think the thing we cherish the most, one thing about me, I've always appreciated like any Roman, Greek, medieval movie. It could be the worst of all time. Like I will watch it. Like I just love those time period pieces. And cowboy culture is similar. Like we appreciate stories. Like stories last. Like that is, and it's about how do you leave a legacy? How do you, and like you said, the gold buckle's tarnished. But like that legacy, when I remember when so and so was whatever, or like I was just talking about that one loop you threw at the camp the other day, and like that energy and that boost, like you had that feel again. And I was like, man, it's really cool. One to see that fire, and it's like, but he still got it. Like that, I watched that loop, and that loop was like 2-man wide, but that sucker closed so fast. I'm like, dude still got it. And like just that high, or when you get a really good picture, I'm like, there's sometimes I'll nail a photo and I just want to chase that person right out the arena to show it to them. Like that feeling of being free. There's so many places that I've gone. Like I saw Mount Rushmore last year or the year before. I would have never gone to Mount Rushmore just because, but a rodeo took me to Mount Rushmore. Yeah. A rodeo took me to Bangor, Maine, where I froze my butt off. A rodeo took me to the grass of Pendleton, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you're like, oh, you understand why it's important to like you or like a contestant, like, dude, like it's that feeling of being free.
Yeah. Out of all those rodeos you've been to, which one now is your favorite?
Well, National Finals Rodeo, but like Pendleton is unique. Like everyone thinks about what I learned this year is that people don't realize is that grass looks really soft at the beginning of the week, but when you've been kneeling and crouching and running on it all day, that sucker gets real hard real fast.
Yeah, especially when you hit it.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, there was a few bulldoggers I saw hit the dirt this year. I'm like, man, that's a tough way to serve the Lord, dude. That hurts. Again. One guy he hit this steer, and it took the steer about 10 seconds to get it all gathered back up. Like you see the dust flying, and that steer's like trying to get it figured out. I was like, man,
that's so funny because that is what my category has been too. The NFR, that it's so hard once you've been there to go to, and then Pendleton. I grew up there, so the grass and the culture and the history behind it. And
my buddy told me like when I did the NFR and I was in the arena last year, because that arena's small. Like once you've seen the big ones, that arena gets
basketball court.
Yeah, that sucker gets real tight. And he was like, "Man, it'll hit you about that third performance." And I'm like, "Dude, it took 3 horses." Soon as that smoke clears, and like I take a knee in the dirt and I look around and I'm like, dude, you're here.
Is that not the coolest energy?
It's crazy. Like it's like even the light falls off right at the edge of the yellow buck and shoots, and like it's this gladiator arena, and it's hard to explain. Dude.
When I walked in my first time at the NFR, I walked in and I'd only seen it on TV.
Yeah.
I had never been there, and we run the steers through. You know, you dabble with it,
but it's different.
But when that light's on and you walk in, and that smoke from the pyro from the grand entry is still laying over the top right there, to where you can barely see the top row.
Yeah.
And I caught myself going, "Hey, I still got a rope steer." It was so cool. Dude, it was mythical.
It is unlike anything. It's different. For me, it's when those girls come out with those flags say NFR, and you're like, it's happening. Yeah. But it's so cool. Like even and I can imagine it's probably similar for you guys. Like, you know, guys don't have to necessarily win money every night, but when you make a good run, you're on top of the world. Like, and when everything goes right, like that first night for me, just make sure all the lights work. Let's get through it, right? Yeah. And you're like, okay, right. I didn't get hooked by a bull or anything. We didn't do nothing weird happened. Everything worked good, and you just man, because now it's real, and you start to see those notifications because someone's always going to take a picture or something of you, and you walk out on that arena the first time, you're like, all right, let's go.
Probably get more confident, I'm sure, after a while. I remember my first time nodding. I don't remember roping. I called my rope up and it was done, and then things slowed down after a while. And is it kind of that way?
I think I remember some nights are blurred. Round 4 or 5. I'm like, I can't tell you what happened. Like I can maybe remember what I wore, but right, some are so fast. Like there's some distinct moments. Like I'll never forget round 4 because I had to be a bullfighter for a few seconds and not get hooked in the corner.
Did anyone get any film of that?
Oh yeah, there's video. Yes. I'll gladly show you that. That was a bad deal too. I mean, going to all those bullfighting and bull riding schools helped out. I'm like,
there you go.
Man, if I try to go to that gate, we're gonna get wrecked out. So we'll take him in the corner and see what happens. And I was fully prepared to if I had one good fake and maybe a round in me, and then it was gonna get bad, but. He blew at me, and I was like, thank God. But yeah, I remember that moment because I looked in this random section of the crowd. Like I didn't focus on anybody. It was just like, all right, that just happened. We didn't die. Let me check my jeans. We're good to go. But yeah, it's the electricity is pretty awesome in there.
Yeah. And now what do you feel like some of the changes are from going from back east and then coming in the Western industry? So I got on your website and I'd read the page where you talked about your thoughts, and I loved that. It was a really good perspective, great topics, and and so for me to understand, to get to know you better is excuse my ignorance, but as an African American black man coming from the east, coming into the West, it's a different culture. Rodeoing's predominantly white. What struggles do you feel like kind of were there? Did people accept everything? Was there racism? Was there anything that
surprising when people asked me about it when I first got started? All the things that you thought were going to be an issue weren't.
Awesome.
Like the people,
that makes me feel so good.
The people appreciate, and I kind of said it a little bit in my speech last year. And I think the people I firmly believe in our industry, if you work hard, yes, there are politics. Yes, you have to do some dancing and maneuvering. But part of me enjoys that. Like I like the game of it. Yeah. But you will be rewarded for your hard work. Like if you stay hooked, because people don't care. I mean, if you're, and I've always been, and then this comes back from how I was raised too. It was like, I mean, obviously I'm an African American, but so part of my mom would always say when you leave the house, hey, don't shame the family. And now, she wasn't just talking about. Over time, I realized she wasn't just talking about the Thompson family. She was talking about her family, everyone that supports you, the family of God, right? Because now you're representing more than just yourself, And then then it meant more because now I'm not just going to the rodeo 3 minutes, an hour from the house. Now I'm going to the rodeo that's 2 states over, right? And she's always raised us that regardless of the circumstances, like, we're not going to be average. Like, you got to be better than average. And I took that as a challenge. Like, fine. Like, I'm down to be, not only am I going to be above average, I'm going to be great.
Yeah.
And so when I see an opportunity, like, oh, well, I can change the game here. I'm going to do it. But yeah, everyone's like, for me, I always say it's like a family reunion every weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm super thankful now that I'm at a point where I can't go to a Western event and someone not know who I am, right? So you always have a friend everywhere. You know, you break down on the road, there's somebody coming behind you, or there's someone 30 minutes ahead of you. And so, yeah, really, like, the challenges of my race wasn't a thing. In fact, it almost kind of helped me because I was the black dude with the camera. And so I kind of used it a little bit to, like, oh, you know, that was kind of like the calling card or something, you know. And then people appreciated my work. It was kind of unique when I went to Virginia State. We were so focused on, a lot of times with some of our instructors, of make it about your work, not who you are.
Right.
And then as I progressed, I'm like, and I was, when I was doing my logo change, because normally everyone would just see my name. And then I had, like, one of my coworkers at the DOD job. She's like, she was really good at doing logos. I'm like, how much you charge to do a logo? She's like, I don't charge enough. I do like $200. I said, I'll give you $300 right now to do me a logo. And she made that Click face logo. And I'm like, that'd be kind of cool. But I mean, and it has drawbacks and benefits. You can't, I mean, I can't go act a fool because literally my logo is my face. But I think there is the challenge in that, of always being consistent and being who you are all the time. Like, I think people are always going to get the authentic version of me. I'm not pretending.
Right. You've done a good job with your branding.
Yeah.
Like your brand. And then, so Christopher Click Thompson. So tell me about Click.
Click was never meant to be a nickname. I just needed a URL. It was around the time of, AOL and MySpace were still rolling hot, and Click was like a hot word, and I was doing design and photography. And
it fits.
I just Click Thompson.
Yeah.
And then one guy, I remember I was photographing a concert, and there's a dude named Dave Sinar, who's like a car salesman, but he plays music. And he was the first person to, like, ever call me Click. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. It was never meant to be a nickname. Now there's people that don't even know my real name.
I know, yeah.
But, you know, it was, and it just
genius.
worked.
Good marketing.
It's God. It's not above, at this point, it ain't of me. I just roll with the wave and I try to do the right thing. But it's been so beneficial. And I think people enjoy the name. Like, I've heard it in every inflection and voice, like little kids say it, like grown adults, like they get fired up about it. It is funny in a bar trying to say Click and you have to do the hand sign thing, like, no, like a camera.
Howdy, ma'am.
Yeah, because they hear everything else but Click. So, but yeah, that was just, going with that. Yeah.
So I also seen where you do concerts. There was a time right there, somewhere in this middle right there, where you were doing concerts as well. Yeah,
I shot a bunch of concerts. Like, when I was kind of when I was searching for, like, what I wanted to shoot all the time. Like, I did a bunch of concerts. Like, I always listen to music. Like, if anyone follows me, I'm usually either playing music or sharing some music, or like, I have a crazy vinyl collection. My dad's a musician. So, so I've always just kind of been around that. Like, there's like a soundtrack to my life. So photographing it like that, going back to, like, when you pick up a camera, you can literally anything you like, you can take pictures of. And if you're smart and crafty, you can figure out how to, make money off of it. Because especially now with social media. Were
you able to do photo shoots at, like, rock concerts or concerts that you actually enjoyed, their music?
Yeah. Most of the stuff, pretty much, I've been fortunate that pretty much everyone I've photographed, I've gotten to, or someone I like. Yeah.
Who all have you gotten to shoot?
Obviously now, like, I mean, people that people know from, I came close to shooting Busta Rhymes. I had a venue close, like, right the week I was going to shoot Lady Gaga and Busta Rhymes, like, the week before it closed. Yeah. But obviously Cody Johnson. I mean, just go down the list. I met Colt Ford and shot his concert one time. That was the funniest thing ever.
Kid Rock?
I've met Kid Rock. I haven't photographed him. Photographed Tim McGraw, Randy Houser, came close to Eric Church. We were, like, literally headed that way. But on the rock side, freaking Sum 41, Alkaline Trio. The list it's hard to remember all of them that you've gone. So
it's hard to believe you're this young as much as you've done.
I remember I became a college instructor or an adjunct instructor when I was 25. And everyone's like, well, way to make us feel like we're doing something impressive. I'm like, hey, man, if you knew that I drove an hour and a half to teach one class that pays $2,000 a semester, like, dude, I don't make any money. It's just.
Do you feel so now? Now that I'm retired, I do a lot more clinics. I've been doing clinics my whole life since I was a young kid. But now that I've retired, I've dove way more into the detail and developed so much more of a craft of articulating certain things and trying to explain it. Well, then I got to make sure I can do it myself. And then I learned so much more since I started doing clinics. Then I almost wished I didn't. There was 1,000% wish I knew that when I was rodeoing.
Yeah.
Did you feel like when you were teaching, did it help kind of develop some more creativity?
You learn different ways to teach people. You learn how people learn things differently. It also, like, that's another easy way to keep the fire. Like, no one is going to come to my clinic if I ain't doing nothing cool, right? But that's an opportunity for me to learn from someone else and see a different perspective. I even tell my clinic students, like, if you take a cool picture, I wish I had a sticker. I need to get stickers made to just say, yeah, I'm going to steal that from you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just because I wouldn't have thought of that. I'm like, man, that's a cool idea. But it helps sharpen the iron. And I think too, going back to legacy, I think it's big on, I think the quote is like, men planting the trees in which you won't sit under the shade of.
Yeah.
How do you,
I like that.
How do you just, continue to, like, because I think me being the photographer here in 2022, like, my goal, that's going to be a small thing in the grand scheme of the things that I do. I think, and going back to the things you do, I always say people will remember you for who you are, not what you did.
Yeah.
I visualize and think about, what's my documentary look like, right? I like when people, like, if someone interviews Charlie Crawford, I want him, when they say Click Thompson, I want him to smile first and talk about a cool story that has nothing to do with me taking pictures. It's just the person I was.
So you talk so much about your legacy, and I talked earlier about you just being a beacon of light. Like, every time I see you, and it's infectious.
Yeah.
And last year, I remember at my military event, I had things going in a lot of different directions.
Oh,
and I really thought about that when I was reading, when you're talking about the mosh pit.
Yeah.
So there's one rule. If someone falls, pick them up.
Every time.
And for whatever reason, when I read that, it reminded me of that time when I rode by you. I think I was holding the national anthem.
You're holding the flag, getting ready to do the
anthem. The national anthem, holding the flag, and I had some fires going.
Yeah.
Like, I think the wrong steers came in. I think they were getting wrapped right. I was getting overwhelmed.
It's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, just, when you have enough things going wrong, like, I don't know, for whatever reason, every time I looked at you, I just smiled.
Yeah.
And so I handed you my pen.
Yeah.
And I believe I told you, I said, I don't need this right now.
Yeah.
But just please hang on to it. And I remember you looked at you and it was like,
okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Whatever you need.
And then you asked, like, why? I said, because if I know you have that pen, I'm going to keep looking at you. And for whatever reason, when I see your smile, I'm like, everything's going to be okay. I needed that one person that just reminded me of that. And that's a pretty cool presence to have.
And I've had people say that. I mean, I'm honored that I can be a light and a beacon for people and just help people get through. Like, I had a 3-hour coffee meeting with a friend today, just talking about little things. And because when you really stop and, like, count your blessings and realize how many things are really going good for you, like, dude, like, we're having this awesome military thing. Like, and the crazy thing is, like, and I've been a part of, like, productions when you've got fires and the people out there don't know all the crazy things that are going on. Like, do we have a check to write this deal on? Like, who's going where? Is this, do I have a shoot boss, or, do we, all these things, like, and you're just praying that it all just comes together.
Praying that everyone that said they're going to show up does.
Right? And you're like, and I always try to, like, it's going to be all right. Like, we'll get through it. Like, man, if I got to, help push steers or whatever I got to do. Like, I told someone, like, I'll probably do that next year. I'm just going to show up to a rodeo without a camera and just pull bull ropes and help people in the box.
That's awesome.
Just cause I learn, because, like, I'll ask you, like, hey, what do you need? Like, when you're in this, like, when you're in a box, cause that tells me things that will later help me on when I photograph you.
Yeah.
That was something I've always think, like, when I would do those commercial stuff or do stuff with American, like, I build a relationship with you. So, like, when you're in the box, I can, as long as I'm not directly in front of your horse, well, he's looking out for me. He's not trying to do anything crazy. So, that's benefited me too. But yeah, just always trying to lift people. Like I think I had done a podcast and it was like, what's your ethos or something you say? I'm like, man, just chase joy. Like if you're in the pursuit of happiness in whatever form it is, like you said, you see those guys and we're broke, like right, but like we're having the time of our lives. Like we wouldn't trade it for anything. Like I've got maybe this check will clear. Like I mean, we were just talking to an old man about writing hot checks to get to the next one, right? But that story, like you cherish it so much. Or like when I went to Cody and did the Centennial and I slept the whole week in a tent. Like that's the first time I ever camped, like in a tent at a rodeo, right? On the 4th of July. I'm like, got like $125. Like my mom called me. She's like, I got a check from the treasurer. I'm like, I don't even know what that's for, but deposit it, right? Yeah. Let's go. And then so you look back on those moments really fondly. But I'm like, yeah, man, it'll be all right, you know. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty good at it too. Like it is a tire fire right now. Yeah. But yeah, just keep smiling. But yeah, I'm thankful and happy that I could, smile for you, so we can get through it.
I appreciate that. It's cool when people have that demeanor. It's infectious. It really does. It helps so many people, and we're honored to have you at our event because the amount of people that need to see that.
Dude, that's been a really cool experience for me. Like that event it's underrated what it means to those guys. I mean, and there's something I'm like, I'm just a photographer. I just take pictures. But like, for them, it's like a guy that shot the NFR photographed me team roping. Yeah. And I'm like, and it's that same feeling I had when I did like a military competition and I saw a guy stand in front of a review board and they watched him. They literally gave him directions on how to walk around the room. And then I realized how important my picture was for those other guys to get promoted. Because now that's what they do in person. Imagine the scrutiny that you have when you're not there, and literally that's the only physical representation of you. Yeah. So you got to make sure every button's straight, every dot, everything is taken care of. And that as a photographer, that's a big part of the deal is being attention to detail. So I've been fortunate that a lot of the things that I've done, from shooting concerts to photographing soldiers, they've all helped me moving forward. Like how do we get this stuff figured out?
Well, I know you're getting excited for the NFR, getting geared up for it. We can see where Jackie's at. We were out there building the boxes, getting all the dimensions just right, getting her ready for the NFR, getting the barrier pulled, and if one chute didn't work, so we had to move another one around. So you know that, and that's not even counting what horse she's going to ride, getting the ropes. But what does preparation look like for you getting ready for?
Dude, man, I made a post about it. Like I think a lot of people see those 10 days, but it's 2 months. Yeah. That like as soon as they say, hey, do you want to shoot the NFR? And you say yes. Like you've signed the deal. Like you gotta make it happen. Like you gotta show up, and you gotta be like. It takes a lot to rope or do anything in the NFR when you gotta be locked in for 10 days, because I owe it to y'all to be the best I can be, because some of y'all may never go back. Yeah. Right. So how can I make that experience not only special for me, but special for you guys, right? So when maybe someone, oh man, I need to get pictures from the NFR I was at 2 years ago, I still have those things, and then I'm able to get it to you, and being that, I'm sure someone's looked at me one night at the rodeo when they're having a holy crap moment, and they see me smiling, they're like, okay, we'll be all right, right? It's just, I even did it at Chris is roping this past weekend. Like I even like some of my friends, like I do it with the breakaway ropers a bunch. I'm like, hey, we got simple ropes here. It's score, ride, rope in that order. Don't skip anything, right? Like it's just helping people do better mentally. It's like, man. And then like one girl, we talked about it like in October, and then she came back to me, which was weird. Like she's like, I need another pep talk. I'm like, hey, we're just roping calves. Like don't do anything different. It all worked. Be smart. Like
they're not shooting back at you.
They're not shooting back at you. Okay, she was 1.8. Now she's 2.2. Okay, now what we gonna do on 3? You ain't got to blow the barrier apart, right? Let's get a good run done. Cool. Love it. Simple. Like so, that's a lot of things people don't see either. Like sometimes I'm doing my little coach deal. Like, oh man, you got this, right? I mean,
encouragement.
Encouragement. I used to tell my friend Mercedes, he was a barrel racer. I'm like, hey man, don't waste my time, bro. I ain't come out here to take pictures of you and tearing up all these barrels. Let's make a decent run. Let's act like we want to be here. And everyone responds differently, but you're coaching and encourage people. And that's been things that really helped with my relationships with people too. Like there was one guy that just looked mean and he was a bull rider and he got hurt. And I asked him like a week later, like, how you doing? I saw you, and that ever since then we've been the best of buds just because I cared about his life more than just how's your bull riding going.
It's such a fresh air for a lot of cowboys because when you're out there, if you're winning, everyone's coming to you. And George Strait's song, and when you're winning, you got a million friends, and when you're down, buddy, you're on your own. So a lot of these guys, there's only a small percentage of people kind of hitting that hot streak and winning. So, and it's a pretty selfish event because it's, if you don't do your stuff, if you don't perform well, you don't win. You don't win, you don't pay your bills. And so it can be real hard out there. And to have someone that's actually sitting right there that cares, that's asking you how you're doing, because the competitors ain't, because they're worried about themselves.
Exactly. What's going on, man? How you doing?
It's amazing the role that you play other than just taking pictures.
Yeah, and that's been fun too. It's awesome building a relationship with everybody. And like you said, I mean, there's all 15 different versions of the quote, but success has many fathers and failure's an orphan. Like every time, that's when you're in the hole. Like, and it can get, and especially like you said, dude, if I don't get a check, something's not getting paid, right? And then it don't matter if we have a pandemic or anything. Them bills ain't stopping. They coming to get them.
Damn right.
Right. So, so just trying to be like, hey, man, you having a good day? Everything good? I'll get a good picture of you today. Like, hey, or just like I would kind of even game plan, like I'll be there, you be there kind of thing. So
you're out there. What a lot of people don't realize at the NFR too is you're shooting 10 rounds, but you're out there for what, 2 weeks? Is you're probably on Tuesdays the back number ceremony, correct? So you'd be shooting at that too.
So
correct?
I get in I got to hang lights in the arena at 9:00 Monday morning.
So you're there working Monday. Yeah,
we're hanging lights, and that's pretty much the only thing because we got to get in before the video crews and TV and everybody else is setting up their stuff, and then after you set up, you kind of have to go back behind them and make sure they haven't moved your stuff all over the place.
So you're there 2 weeks, basically.
We'll be there Sunday, and then we'll leave Sunday. 2 weeks later.
Walk us through that 2 weeks.
Last year was unique because, like you said, like when you were winning, like I was winning. Like I was going to the NFR, and now you're photographer of the year. The funny thing about winning anything, like you become a world champion, anything, is the coolest experience, the coolest and the weirdest experience when you wake up the next morning and you realize you're the same person, right? But the role sometimes will ask more of you. So like now, more than likely you're making appearances or you're doing interviews or someone will talk to you. Like we have to be at the arena at like 3. So, but we don't leave till 10:30. So that's a whole section of a day that you can just count off. So, if you get a little wild at night, now you're waking up at 10, that everything gets compressed. So, we hang lights that first day and then, get checked in, get all your hotels straight. If you got people coming in, kind of coordinate that. That next day we set up to do the headshots and the group photos. And then that evening we have the back number ceremony we shoot. And then next morning we're doing headshots of everybody. I think this year we're going to do like the cover for the next PSN.
And that's on Wednesday?
That's on Wednesday. And then we leave there and then go to the awards gala. And then the next day it's,
the awards Thursday or it's Wednesday night?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then you're rolling. And then Thursday we're doing a lot of those meetings, those first, meeting with the GM, figuring out where you're going to be. Just you're in there really early just to make sure everything works. Just really getting the flow. Like last year, my assistant this year is my same assistant from last year, but last year I had only known her maybe 6 months. Like our longest time we had spent together was the 18-hour drive to the rodeo.
Yeah.
And then, so we're trying to learn each other. And that was an awesome moment too, because that first performance, like everyone kind of has their way of getting prepped or getting in game mode. And I actually get quiet. So she's like looking around to other people like, did I do something wrong? And I see her and she's like bug-eyed. I'm like, hey, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm going to get quiet here for a few minutes because I have to like go to the place I need to be the guy in the arena. And then, and she comes back and it was funny for me because I have a bunch of different people that work for me, but I don't know her that well, like super well. And we had like all the things we needed to do that night went fine, but we had like some extra stuff that kind of got a little jacked up or we weren't quite on the same schedule. And she was bummed, like she let me down. And it was awesome for me. I always tell this story. She knew she could do better. So she had like thrown her sucker in the dirt. And I'm like, no, you did great. Like, we're good. Like, it's night one. We got 9 nights to figure this deal out, right? And really, everything we needed to do went perfect. Like, you killed it. And I was so fired up because I had someone that wanted to be great. Yeah. Not just for me, but also for themselves.
Wasn't doing it for a paycheck. They took pride in their work.
They wanted to be great. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, I knew right then and there I had the right person. Yeah. But I'm also like, I'm trying not to get her to spiral, but I'm also like, no, you did a really good job. You know, you're killing it, stuff like that. So shout outs to Emma. She'll be with me this year. Awesome. But I told her last year, I said, the deal's yours till you don't want it.
Heck yeah.
Because I intend to keep going. So
because it's, for a cowboy, it's not near as much. The stress is there, but not for the marathon that you're in. We're there, we're running the steers through, we're going to some of the events and signing autographs and stuff like that. But like when it's time to compete for us, it's a few seconds. Yeah. You're having to stay on for hours. Yeah. That mentally, that has to be exhausting.
It is. It's funny. You have moments where there's a few moments, and as you know, that rodeo runs so fast. Like it will. I remember the first time I went just as a fan. I'm like, this started at 7 and I'm back on the steps at 9. Like we're rolling. Yeah. Like, and that's like, you talk about the changes from like coming from the East to coming out here. I'm like, just the way you run the show is different. Yeah. Like we're going. Yeah. And so you got it, and they ain't waiting on you. Like, so like and y'all can watch this year, you'll see me running. Like when you see that flag girl come by, I'm chasing her down to get to the other end between the deal, just to get ready for the next deal, get in position. But yeah, to stay locked in. But I enjoy that, like being able to stay locked in that long. I'm like, bam, I got another one. And that's going back to the first days of picking up a camera. When you got a good one, and that will sustain you. That'll keep you fired up. It's like, okay, I got a good one. Got a good one. Like, okay, that's a good one. And then, but you can't stay on it too long. You got to go get the next one and get the next one. I'll never forget. Steve Torrance called me in the middle of the perf. I'm like it's like right during the break. And my phone rings. And I'm like, everyone that I know knows I'm at the NFR. Why is someone calling me? And I look back and I see it's Steve Torrance. And it was like that, those moments where, say, you're in like a big important meeting and your friend sees you and busts in the deal and you're like, and they don't realize it's an important deal. And I see him in the crowd and I take one picture of him. Like, but that was like the moment where it broke. Like, oh, it's the rodeo, right? It was. And that was cool for him because he's like, I called my buddy. He's a photographer of the year. I also photographed his wedding. And I take this one picture of him just with his drink in one hand, phone on the other, his wife's waving, and at the National Finals Rodeo. Yeah. And I'm like, crazy.
Such a cool place for photos with the lighting, and especially there has to be stuff with the background where you can still see the smoke from the pyro, and them horses are just kicking in the dirt and the powder. And
one of my favorite photos that's actually a pretty crappy photo, but it's one of my favorite photos because you had to I took it in 2021, and when the roping events happens, you can't see them, but there's a bunch of people sitting on those panels on the other side, like stacked up back there. And there was one night I'd totally disregarded the rodeo and climbed all up on the panels and everything, and I'm trying to get just a shot of where you could see the back of their heads of them all watching, because it was that vibe of it's all those pro guys, they become little kids again, like when they went to their first rodeo and they're looking through the fence. If you ever get a chance, or if you ever see them, look under, when they're roping, look for those guys that are sitting on the panels behind the box, and they're it's a bunch of, we all become little kids again, and we remember why we do it.
I'm glad you weren't at my first NFR. So I actually went down. I had to do something for my little kid self. Yeah. I didn't know if I'd ever make it, and I remember I made a promise with my buddies. I'm like, if I ever make it, I'm doing a dirt angel in the head box. Yeah. Well, then I make it, and I'm like, that little kid. Yeah. Would kill me if I don't do this. So I stumbled in there on Monday evening or whenever I got there, and I dropped down on the floor and I did a dirt angel in the box, because that's how much it meant to me. This was something I dreamt about my whole entire life, and to be there, and I'm glad you weren't there, because that probably would have been a silly picture. But
is Charlie, is he dead? No, he's making a dirt angel. Or I would have been there, but kid. What is he doing?
Seizure.
When I see him next, we'll talk about that. I'm like, were you making a dirt angel in the box?
But it does. It
But
really
the funny
does.
thing
It takes
too,
you back.
if I had seen that, I'd have got it. I'd be
Yeah.
like, because it changes you.
It's an amazing place.
Yeah, it changes you.
So the technology nowadays to be able to shoot compared to when you first started to where the technology is. How about that?
Now I can take pictures now, and I don't even have to. Like, I can set up remote cameras. We can, like, I tell people all the things that, like, I was explaining to somebody, like, when a horse bucks, like, I see that horse leave, and then before that horse stretches his feet out, I hit that button, and that button tells the radio signal on the top of my camera to trigger the other radios that are on these lights to flash, and all that happens as that horse is stretching out. Like, the timing's got to be, because there ain't no, when you're shooting on lights, there's no spraying and praying. There's one shot at a time. And so you really have to be in tune with everybody. So that's one thing I think people don't realize is, like, when you're shooting that way, your timing has to be really good. So, like, I go to rodeos beforehand and, like, prep and get my, because it is a bit of a perishable skill. Like, you have to practice your timing and be able to read horses and bulls and be able to see when you're getting ready to let that rope go. Because there's like, when is he going to deliver? And do I want to be before or after? Or is he going to take one more swing? And because it's weird. Generally, it won't affect most of you guys, but I never want to shoot right as you're letting go of the rope. Like, once the rope's in the air, ain't nothing I can do about it. But I never want to right as that rope's leaving your hand. So I'm always watching you and waiting for you to load up and see, because you can see it. And so I'm always paying attention to those things and, like, how each guy ropes and maybe how this horse works in comparison to a different horse and, guys' tendencies. And, maybe he's likes to reach, but I need to slow down a little bit because if I reach, I'm going to be in the wall here real quick, right? Or if I'm trying to shoot a team roping shot and get both guys in the photo, I'm not kind of like isolating a guy. Like, okay, I know this guy I may have a bunch of rope here, so I got to keep an eye on him. And so there's all these little things that I'm watching and that are happening. And, like, I saw Brody Cress earlier, and I was telling him, I have a picture of him from 2021 where he had, like, a tissue shoved in his nose because his nose was bleeding. Yeah. But, so it's constantly, there's always constant things moving, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you're nominated for Photographer of the Year again this year. When does that drop?
So we will find out Wednesday night. And it's funny too. When we did it last year, it's funny because they do our award like earlier in the deal. So I'm like still eating food, and they're like, "You ready?" I'm like, What's going on?" and I was wearing an outrageous jacket last year, so I'm like, there's no way you're hiding. And we get on the stage and, like, they're going. Like, as soon as you, like, get to your spot, they're like, and the winner is. You're like, oh crap, we're doing it right now, right? So there is no. It was fun watching Taylor Sheridan have to wait for everyone to stop taking pictures with me for him to get his photo. That was funny, but yeah. So I mean, I always say it's an honor just to be in the top 5. Like, the other 4 are really good friends and good photographers, and but I appreciate the responsibility that comes with it too, because I think there is, you have to represent, not only don't shame the family, you got to represent the association, the other photographers. Like, you're now the beacon, or they're supposed to be the tip of the spear, so to speak, and it kind of goes as you go. So
it's kind of cool though when you think about this industry compared to a lot of other industries where your competition's actually friends. There's people you're able to kind of root on, where it's not a knife cutting. Knife or cutthroat.
The best time is it's iron sharpens iron, man. And I always talk about, like, going to, like, music festivals. Like, when you go to a big music festival, everyone they're professionals and they're fans. Like, they play their deal, and then what do? They go watch the guy that they love their music too. And I'm like, well, why can't we be like that? Like, why can't I celebrate this guy too? And I treat it all like it's the same thing, like a good marriage or relationship. When that other person wins, I win, and when I win, they win. So, like, when my buddy does good, like, we train together, we work stuff together, we're all winning. And I'm not losing. Right. I'm just, I was nominated, and that means something. That's a big deal too.
Absolutely.
So, but if it be God's will, we'll go again, and
Well, I know as much as we love the industry and we're right in the thick of it, sometimes you can't almost rely financially on just that one thing.
Yeah.
You know, when I was rodeoing, you know, if I was just going to compete at rodeos for a living, it really didn't, unless you made the NFR and killed the NFR, it was hard to make those truck payments.
Yeah.
It was hard to buy a house and maintain a mortgage, you know. So jackpots, you know, we had jackpots right there that helped facilitate where, you know, we might be able to buy a horse if we did really good. Did some clinics, you know, sponsors helped out with a lot of different things. But you had to keep, if you're going to be a rodeo cowboy, you've got to keep some other things kind of in that fire and in that circle right there to get things going. And that doesn't look like your business model is much different. You know, you go to however many rodeos you go to a year.
Yeah.
I see where you do some weddings.
Yep.
I know you got companies like American Hats, you know, and now you're doing clinics as well. You know, so tell me about your business model.
That was one thing I noticed when I moved to Texas. Like, everyone's got multiple irons in the fire. Like, no one just does one thing. Like, if he's a rodeo cowboy, he also maybe does leather work, or he's a real estate agent, or he has, you know, everyone's doing something this. They're finding ways to either create passive income or just something that works while you're not working.
Right.
And I've always looked at it like I didn't want to be the guy that was trying to sell photos $20 at a time. If I can go to a rodeo and have a check before I get there, then the stress goes down and I can smile during the rodeo and not be like, man, I hope I get a good one. Like, I think that would be the worst if I had to go to a rodeo and be like, man, I hope I get a good one so I can sell a photo.
Right.
But there've been times where it's like, dude, you're like deciding, should I go? Should I not go? Like, you have to be financially smart too. You have to learn, like, man, I would really like to go to X rodeo, but it's going to cost me $2,000 to get there.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's flights, rooms, the whole deal, or can I, like 2020 was this crazy. I shot more weddings that year. I sold hats. I sold boots. Like, I would go to Cowtown. I'd have the whole truck bed would be full of boots, and I sold boots out the back of the truck. I worked at a photo booth company.
Just like the rest of us. You had to get resourceful.
Yeah. I'm like.
Creative.
But, I mean, and that was funny when I used to teach undergrad. I always wanted to write a class called Craftiness 101, because that is like the epitome of like any photographer, videographer. Like, when you're in the thick of it, things break and stuff doesn't work, and you just got to figure it out, right? And I was like, well, I had like some guitars. I'm like, I ain't going to be a musician no time soon. We ain't going on tour, so some of these suckers are going, you know. Yeah. I can sell boots. I would literally go to my boot guy and be like, hey, what old boots do you have that you're trying to move? What do you need for them? Okay, I'll get some sold. I was shipping boots left and right. You know, you have a few top ramen nights, or, you know, I got really good at turning rotisserie chickens into all kinds of different stuff. But then you come out of it and you're like, and I remember I was playing like a card game, and it made me think about like I'm like, man, I haven't bought a rotisserie chicken in a long time. And then I was like, okay, you're doing the right thing. Like, or my brother said, hey man, your craftiness work. Like, you are a photographer that didn't have to get a day job during a pandemic.
Yeah. So
clearly you're doing something right? But yeah, I think I relish those moments of the struggle and the trials and how do I overcome that next thing. Because one of my buddies said, you know, eventually you're going to suck at your job. So you got to figure out how to add value. Right? Like, how can I add value to someone else so that, I mean, I'm not going to be the best rodeo photographer. I mean, I'd be the best rodeo photographer today, so I ain't going to be necessarily in 20 years. So in 20 years, how do I evolve? How do I add new things? You know, maybe I always joke that, you know, I'm going to go about 10, 15 more years, and then we're going to get in the roping pen, and I'm going to try to rope for a truck. You know, I got plenty of good healing partners already set up, right? So, you know, yeah, it's just being crafty and finding new things. Like, I'm always trying to find new ways to make it easier for cowboys to get pictures. Like, how do I need to
I've seen you do clinics.
Yeah.
How many of those do you have a year?
I do about 4 a year.
What time of years do you try to get
usually
those
I try to get at least one kind of in the February, March area. I may do one kind of before I leave, go on the summer run. And then I'll usually do two kind of in the fall area because when we're a little slower. And it's cooler, so when we're in Texas, we're not cremating, trying to take pictures. You know, I don't need by passing out. But
it's pretty cool where you're teaching the competition.
Yeah, I mean, I learned along. You know, it's funny. I used to go to rodeos. No one knew they were in a competition with me, but I wanted to choke slam every photographer out there. Like, I wanted to create the best pictures, so when we all post our photos on Sunday or Monday, they go, "Dang, Click got us again!" Right?
That's right.
No one knows that they're in this competition but me. And then one day I go, hey, no one can do you better than you.
Mm-hmm.
So no one became competition at that point, because I knew if a client loved what I did and loved who I was, because I learned very early that our industry is about relationships. If you're not a person that people want to invite to dinner, you're a person they're probably not going to hire.
Right.
So, so then it became about, how do I, lift other people and, give them opportunity. Because again, one day I'm going to suck at my job. I ain't going to be able to do, I ain't going to be able to do it. I'm not going to be the guy.
Yeah.
So, that doesn't mean someone else can't,
Right.
and it still shines bright on you when someone goes, I learned from Click Thompson, or,
absolutely.
and it has some value there. So then people come back to you like, hey, I saw this one guy and he's been doing really good. Like, maybe you can help my daughter, blase, or, so.
That stuff's timeless.
Yeah, it's timeless. And yeah, so you want everyone to do good. I mean, and everyone's journey is different. I tell that when people call me about doing letters or permits and stuff, like, dude, your permit process is going to be as unique as you are.
Yeah.
I would love to say, hey, this is how you do it. This is how, it is going to be different. And that's good. Like, there are going to be some struggles. But that's a part of what we do. Like, we overcome things. We are resourceful. Sometimes you got to borrow a horse. So like sometimes you gotta, sleep at someone's places. Sometimes you gotta stay on the couch or sleep in a tent. So yeah, always building on that. So yeah, I mean, if I can, and they're like my kids, so to speak. It's just, again, it's a reflection of me. It's,
right.
If you can, people will remember who you are and not what you did.
Yeah.
And when you change lives that way, or and it's incredible when someone says, man, I picked up a camera because of you.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I'm like, I don't even know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, let me know if I can help you, or,
Start to realize why we're down here for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm realizing you're as busy as the rest of us.
Yeah.
You got a full schedule out there. And I remember when I was rodeoing, it was hard. Everyone asked, like, how did me and Jackie do it? How do you have balance? And Jackie and I are like, balance? Like, what?
What is?
We just keep grinding and grinding. But what is your balance? What are the things you do outside of rodeo, your interest, that keeps you from burning out?
Sometimes it's just slowing down. Like, I think and I try to tell people like that as well. Like, I know, like, I can be the beacon for people, but like sometimes just slowing down and being around your friends. Mm-hmm. I go watch other photographers work. I am secretly sometimes doing R&D, but like, I want them to do well too. And if I can help them out, whatever, or support them, like, hey man, you're doing a good job. Like, I don't have to have it all. Like, I'm still a fan.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be the guy, because there's always one that's on the back of the shoots at the NFR that ain't doing nothing, but is there. Like, he's got some role, or has, he's a part of the history of the rodeo. Mm-hmm. Right. And I would, I would love to be able to say, if the 4 photographers in the arena, I signed for all 4 of them, or I helped each, I can have a story. I helped each 4 of these kids that are in here, or, it's just, but yeah, knowing when to throttle back sometimes, like, you have to, sometimes you got to go, knowing when to go. I think, that's, maybe more underrated than knowing when to throttle back. Like, there are certain moments when you, like, this is the opportunity, and you need to be able to identify that, and you need to go.
Yeah.
Right? There's going to be, we've all risked it in some point, like, I don't know if we should go, but we're going. Yeah. Right? I don't know how we're getting home, but it'll be fine. Right? Yeah. It'll work itself out, right? Yeah. Someone will let us borrow a few $100s so we can at least get home or something like that. But
I always remembered my outlet. It was one of the weirdest outlets that I had was when I was rodeoing. When I come back from the NFR, I took 2 weeks off, and tractor work.
Yeah.
I loved, like, I might be able to borrow one of my buddy's skid steers, and it had that mulcher on it, and I'd go out there and just tear trees down, get the chainsaws going and the poles. So, like, because when you were done after a week or two, like, you could see progress. Yeah. But it was such a great outlet because my phone was shut off, and it was rewarding to see the outcome, but it was also nice to be able to not have to think in a way, and just like how men are kind of almost designed to work, like using your hands, and just, it's so fulfilling. But that was one of the weirdest outlets I think I remember having.
I used to do a similar before I left my last year working at the Department of Defense job. We had that deal where we were print targets. Well, I only had a certain amount of PTO, but I could build time. So what I would do, I'd come on weekends where I wasn't gone, and I just print targets for 8 hours. And I have both. I had the printer going, I had the cutter going, and you could see how many targets I had done because they'd be all boxed up. And it was just, I was doing that, and it was, I could turn it, like you said, you could turn it off. It was just, you could be a machine, and you could just go. And it was, because, I think if in another life, I would have been in like some like factory or worker where, because there's pride in that too, and it was still art, and there was you had to understand how the machine worked, and you had to learn. And sometimes I always say it's good to suck at something every now and then and like learn how to do something new. But yeah, and after the NFR, I go home to Virginia and I disappear for 2 weeks and don't pick up a camera and just, see trees again. I mean, there's a few around here, but like,
That's, You talked about earlier too about things you took for granted. Yeah. Me being from Oregon, I remember we'd have guys coming out there and coming roping with us. Yeah. And I remember I was such a dumb kid. I was so one-track mind. Yeah. We're out there, and I didn't live very far from the Moala River. Mm-hmm. So we'd ride our horses out there in the summertime and go out there. And one of my buddy's dad flew in from Oklahoma. And he's like, "Golly, Charlie, what kind of tree is that?" I'm like, I don't know, but it looks like a big one. And we're driving, we walk by this farm, and it's like, "Oh, I wonder what they're planting on." "Charlie, what are they planting out there?" Man, I don't know. It looks green.
Yeah, it looks green.
Well, what river are we in right here? I don't know. It's cold. Like, I didn't know nothing. I was like, finally, I'm like, look, all right, the beer store is up there about 1.3 miles. I enjoy Coors Light. Yeah. I got an extra soft head rope. That's all I knew. But it was funny. Yeah. And then when you come out here and you go back, it's like, it was amazing what I seen up there. The Multnomah Falls, going down there and going through the gorge, and it's amazing what you take for granted when you're from there. Oh yeah,
I go home and just the water, or some of the seafood, or there's this little gas station kind of grocery thing called Wawa, and they make these hoagie sandwiches, and it's like we don't have a Whataburger, so there's nothing like that. Sucker is 24/7. And you can get that sandwich. And I'm like, and every time I go home, I always take a picture of that gas station. And people are like, "What is the deal?" I'm like, dude. And it's nothing spectacular. You can get a better sandwich. You could make a better sandwich more than likely. But just having that deal, you can tell, good Chinese food, a Wawa sandwich, and seafood. Like usually if my mom picks me up from the airport, I'm going to Wawa.
That's happiness.
First place we're going. I just want a sandwich. Like, okay.
Well, man, I enjoyed having you on here.
Absolutely.
I can't tell you how much I enjoy your work. I can't tell you how much you mean to Liberty and Loyalty and me and my family. And man, you're just a stud of a guy. And thank you for coming out. And
for sure.
How do we get a hold of you? How do we, you got a bunch of stuff out there online that we can buy.
Yeah.
You're doing clinics. How do we get a hold of you?
Pretty much ClickThompson.com, and then Instagram has been like the main feed, but I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. It's all at Click Thompson. Definitely more clinics coming next year. We're going to try to do some more apparel and merch. Going to try to hit some new rodeos, some new cities and states next year too. Going to maybe do some clinics and working on one in New York, and then trying to do something in Indiana. Just continuing to do what we enjoy, and we get to live a pretty free life, and we get to, one of my buddies is a police officer, and he's like, "So how is what you do?" I'm like, man, dude, I'm blessed, dude, man. It's every day is different. You feel like you really have a lot of control over your life. And, man, I just Click Thompson. If you got questions, if you got prayer requests, I do that now. I started, because and even if I don't respond, like I try to give people that outlet, because sometimes just verbalizing, because we all got things going on, man. And, and as small as it is, man, maybe your Wi-Fi don't work today, but it's a big deal when it does, right? That maybe you got a little kid and that iPad, when that Wi-Fi don't work, that iPad don't work, and then it's a chaos, right? But, I'm super thankful and, appreciate everyone's support. If you've liked a photo, bought a photo, said hi, please always say hi. I tell people all the time, you see me, say hi. Like, I understand the importance of 5 minutes, so I try to at least give everybody that. Unless I'm running to a rodeo. Well, NFR, I will wave. Hey, good to see you. No, I won't sign your baby. But, everything's good. But, appreciate it.
Man, enjoy it out there. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate you.